Making great espresso at home is an amazing hobby to get into for the right person. But the truth is that for all the potential that's unlocked by owning an espresso machine, there are plenty of reality checks and pitfalls that can come along with it as well. Since it's been about 10 years since I picked up my rocket, I wanted to share 3 takeaways that I feel are important to understand to get the most out of your setup, especially if you're new to the home espresso hobby. And don't worry, we'll get into this God shot thing soon. First is managing your expectations. Not every shot is going to be perfect, and this can be very frustrating, especially if you're new to the hobby and you just dropped a lot of money on new equipment. Even if you have a great grinder and a great machine, there's no real guarantee of great coffee. Okay, so take this example. You've just picked up a new machine and grinder, you have all the nice accessories, basically the whole kit. You're in about $500, maybe $1,000, $1,500, maybe more. You go to make an espresso with all the latest puck prep techniques, and you should expect perfection, right? Well, let's say you're cutting a tomato with a beautifully made shun knife. Your knife techniques are good, and you have your technique totally dialed in. Would you expect that tomato to be perfect when you cut into it? No. And you really shouldn't. Especially since it's February in Maryland, where tomatoes stopped growing months ago. It's important to understand that coffee is an agricultural product, and it's at the mercy of weather, supply chain, and roasting. Basically, everything that interacts with it up to the moment you get it into your hands will affect quality. And even with great coffee on your bar that has been handled well and roasted with care, the way it behaves varies as it gets further and further from the roast date. Now, I'm not trying to discourage you from getting into espresso. My advice is to simply understand that espresso will sometimes be effortless and sometimes be temperamental for reasons that are pretty much out of your control. And as a barista, part of your job is to know when those factors are working in your favor and when they're not. An amazing setup will allow you to extract all the good stuff when it's there, but it can't really do much to help add quality back. And speaking of the good stuff, let's talk about God shots. Now, I think we all, as passionate coffee people, have this idea of what makes an amazing tasting espresso. It can be the texture, the flavor, the aroma, or how it interacts with milk. You may have heard the term God shot thrown around here and there. What happens when the stars align, the sky opens up, and you taste the perfect espresso? It sounds great, and it does happen every so often, but chasing it isn't really a good idea. Now, I've been guilty of this myself, and it took time for me to realize that not every coffee is going to be that coffee. In the past, when I branched out from my usual blend or recipe, I would try to force that coffee into the kind of espresso that lived in my head. And you really can't do that. Every coffee is going to bring its own unique set of properties to the table. You have to be able to understand and appreciate what's in front of you and not project your own expectations onto that coffee. And if you can do that, your curiosity will be rewarded with the best espresso that the coffee on your bar has to offer. But learning to do this takes time. It's really helpful to taste as much as you can, and also taste and share coffee with friends and fellow enthusiasts to get better. And that's actually what I'm building right now on Patreon. Each month, I'm going to pick out a coffee to dial in together and go live when it's time to dial it in. I guess it's sort of like an espresso book club. But the goal is to have the chance to share different recipes and hear different perspectives from across the community. Patrons will get access to the live tastings and have a say in what coffees we taste together. I'm going to start out with US roasters, but as the group grows, I'd love to expand beyond that. So check out the link below to join in on these tastings. And now the third takeaway, which is that things are probably going to go wrong at some point. Things just happen with espresso machines, and while you can't take out an insurance policy on your machine, at least not that I know of, there are a few things you can do to be prepared if something does go wrong. It's easy enough to keep up with a good cleaning regimen, and swapping out gaskets when it's needed isn't that big of a deal. But leaks can happen, pumps can fail, and scale can affect how your machine performs over time. And warranties are important in case something goes wrong out of the box, but realistically, a well-built machine should function just fine outside of the warranty period. So to deal with out-of-warranty issues, it's a good idea to buy from a seller that has a good reputation for customer service, offers in-house repair, and can provide replacement parts for projects that you feel like you can tackle on your own. And this is especially important if you had your machine shipped from far away. Tackling a project while your machine is still on your bench with the support of a shop can save you loads of time and avoid the risk of a courier drop kicking your machine on its way to and from the service center. And at the end of the day, making espresso is a hobby that is really satisfying for the right person. You have to love learning and love tasting lots of not so great coffee on your way to get to some really excellent coffees. And if all this sounds good to you and it's within your budget, then espresso at home is something you should consider. But if what you're really after is a great recipe to get you started, then you're gonna wanna check out this video right here. Don't worry, I didn't waste that tomato.